Uh, well, I've got that, so I better dismiss that message. Well, good evening, everyone, wherever you are, and a particular good evening to Nigel Clibbens, who's our sort of guest this evening, and has very kindly offered to answer questions from the London branch on all matters Carlisle United. Just to introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me, and indeed for those who do, I'm John Bowman. I'm the Vice Chairman of the London branch, and I'm currently the Hit the Bar editor. And I can see one of my predecessors, Lee Rooney, is in the audience today. So thanks to Lee for his help when I took Hit the Bar on. First of all, many thanks for all your questions. What I've done is I've sort of grouped them into a few key themes. And you'll be stunned, and I'm sure Nigel will be equally stunned to know that the first area I want to talk about really is the takeover. So just a bit of warning on that one. I'll try and name check the member or members who raised each question, but apologies in advance because I'm bound to miss out somebody, and particularly as a lot of you asked much the same question or questions in the same area, as I'm sure you'd expect. Any questions that aren't asked or don't get sort of fully answered if we run out of time will be picked up by our CUSG rep, Terry McCarthy, and he'll take them up with the club through the sort of the Brunton Park route through CUSG and other routes up in Carlisle. And really, before I go any further, I wanted to thank Nigel for keeping this commitment in his diary. When we set the date, we'd really no idea it might be at such what hopefully is a critical time in the takeover process. So I say thanks for giving us your time, Nigel. Just to check, how long have we got you for? Do you have a?
I've got nowhere to go, so I'm as long as it takes.
Right. Okay. Well, no, that's helpful. So there's no need to kind of panic and try and get through the stuff too quickly. So thank you for that. So just to remind ourselves, actually, and perhaps to salutary for Nigel. Nigel's been our chief executive at Brunton Park for over 7 years now. He joined in June 2016, according to his LinkedIn page. So I assume that's accurate. That season, sort of 16-17, was Keith Curl was the manager, and I'm sure Nigel remembers that. And that was a season that we got to the playoffs and got beaten by Exeter 6-5. And I'm sure quite a few of us on the call were at one or both of those playoff games. Exciting, but ultimately fruitless compared with last season. So that's where we were. Directly before coming to Carlisle, Nigel was at Huddersfield Town, and he was chief executive there. His background, as I'm sure some of you know, he's a qualified chartered accountant, having worked for PwC and Grant Thornton. He's a graduate of Lancaster University with an economics degree, and he has an MSc in econometrics and quantitative economics from York. So I guess he's a man who likes a spreadsheet. But, okay, so without further ado, I want to just get into unless you wanted to say anything by way of introduction, Nigel, yourself.
No, I'm just delighted to be here and to field some questions. It's always good to talk with supporters, so I'm really looking forward to it.
We'll try not to change that view then. Right. So I mean, good news actually, as some of you may have seen on Twitter, and I'm sure Nigel knows, the Piax are going to be at Portsmouth on Saturday. So in terms of the takeover, that sounds like some sort of good news. And really, my starting point was really just to sort of get some sort of update from Nigel on where the takeover is, and then perhaps just to chat through the various components of it, the sort of various things that need to be in place for it to happen, and just get a feel for sort of A, how likely it is, and then B, what needs to happen over the next few days, weeks, months, for it to start making a difference to the operations of the club, I guess.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll start and try not to repeat lots of things that have been covered before.
Sure.
In terms of where we are, the family put out a tweet after Saturday's game about the result, but indicating progress on the deal. And I think since that came out on Saturday, I would say that we've had a reasonably good week this week, and further progress has been made. So things remain very much on track, moving forward, and really positive. So that's all good news from that point of view. In terms of completing a deal and ultimately moving forward with the Piax, there's a number of things that have to be put in place. Some of them pretty basic. So the first thing is there's an agreement with the existing shareholders about what happens to their shares. So that has to be converted into a legal agreement called a share and purchase agreement. That is well on the way. Part of that, the QOS, the fan trust, have agreed to dilute its shareholding. So as part of that, they've got a process to go through. That's advancing well, as I understand it. Speaking to Billy and Nigel, and we speak almost every day. So what that will entail is that a new sale and purchase a new shareholder agreement will need to be put in place between the new shareholders, which will be Castle Sports Group and the trust. At the moment, there's a shareholder agreement between the individual shareholders and the trust that dates back probably 50. It's actually a deed of adherence that they're operating under in relation to a shareholder agreement that dates back probably 15 to 20 years. So that's well overdue for updating. So there's that piece of work to do. And then alongside that, there's the EFL approval process or EFL clearance process to go through. Really, that can only take place in earnest after all the other pieces of the jigsaw are all complete, because what has to happen is the documents, as far as they are available, have to be sent to the EFL, and they have to look at them and consider them. So there's a few things that have to go through. Some can go in parallel, some have to go in sequence, and eventually all the pieces should fit together, and we're well on with that process. So it's all good.
I mean, in your experience, I was going to ask you about the kind of the EFL stuff. I mean, as you've indicated, then so we need to get our side in place before they come to review. It says the things that could come in the way of the EFL approval. Can you see anything in the deal as it's being put together that might raise a red flag from their side, or is it, as far as you're concerned, looks like a deal they would support? Or
I think the one thing that everybody needs to be recognised is that the EFL role in approving any deal for a change of control, because that's the key bit. There's a threshold, and once you get to a change of control, then a whole set of different set of regulations come into play. They're much more stringent. These regulations are changed almost every year. They're unrecognisable almost since pre-Bury and the failure of Bury FC. So they're very, very stringent, but there's nothing to fear as far as I'm concerned, and there never has been. There's kind of two planks that run together. One is the probity, fitness, fit and proper status of the people who are coming in, and that's one kind of set of tests that have to be gone through, and then the other part, the second part, is the source and sufficiency of funds. And there's two parts to that. One is the source, which is where does the money come from, and two, is it sufficient for the plans that have been put in place? So that leads then into what are the plans that have to be funded. So there's a number of elements that go with that. The EFL look at all the documents. They look at the sale and purchase agreement. They look at shareholder agreement. They look at funding agreements in terms of where the money's going to go. and obviously that links into pure pay in our particular case. So they want to know, obviously, what's going to happen to that. Their main concern is that are left in a good place with new owners who come in. They want their clubs to thrive and prosper, and they're very wary of their duty to protect clubs on behalf of fans and supporters and communities. They take that very, very seriously. They're under a lot of scrutiny for it, so they do a proper job. There's nothing to fear, and I'm not envisaging any issues with any of that once we get to that point. Obviously, there'll be questions and things, but I think I'm not envisaging any issues eventually.
I mean, that sounds like it could be a lengthy process, but I mean, how soon?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that fans need to be aware of is that one of the regulation changes that's happened in recent times is around actually talking about the approval process. What's happened in the past is prospective deals, people have gone public and said, this is all done subject to EFL approval. And at that point, everybody looks at the EFL and says, right, get it done. And we want to take over tomorrow. And it puts undue pressure on the EFL. And that's not right. The EFL needs to be able to do its job with proper time and space. So there's new regulations come in that say that restricts what clubs can talk about in the approval process. So as far as we're concerned, I don't want fans to get too bogged down in where we are with the EFL and things like that. It's nothing to be concerned about. We've got other issues to resolve first, and if we get those resolved, then we can talk about the EFL. But it's not something that's anybody needs to be concerned about at this point.
Okay, I mean, from what you're saying in terms of things, that are in your control, and the club's control, and the people involved in the takeovers control. It sounds like the shareholder side of it is heading towards conclusion that the existing shareholders are kind of happy to withdraw and allow the new shareholding arrangements to come into place. They
agreed a deal a while ago, so it's been about putting that into place. And most of the time that's been since that was agreed has been spent primarily on due diligence and dealing with the outstanding issues around pure pay, etc. So they have to run, but they're all proceeding nicely as I see it.
That's good to hear. I mean, you mentioned the pure pay issue a couple of times. I didn't want to start with that one, but it feels like from the outside that's the big thing to sort out. That's the proverbial elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's followed my updates to supporters and been on some of these calls in the past, this isn't new. I've been talking about this for about 2 years at least. Yeah. That this would now need to be dealt with in any kind of transaction for investment or a takeover. So this isn't new. It's not a surprise. And put simply, anybody coming in to any business or to own anything is going to want to know in detail what they're likely to inherit and what that might mean for them when they're faced with it. So they can do the due diligence to find out what they're inheriting, but then they need to understand what could then happen in practice. And this has been a lot of the issue. It's been about, right, what happens next with that debt. So you could buy the shares, you could take the football club, but then on day one, what might happen with that debt? Now, nobody's going to want to. The legal paperwork's clear, and it's all there as to what could happen. But like anything, what could happen is different to what does happen. So you've got to kind of do your due diligence to find out what that actually means, and that's a lot of what's been going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I say from what one hears, one of the problems or one of the difficulties in resolving that appears to be in Pure Pay's disinclination to sort of engage in dialogue. There was some suggestion that things had improved, and there was I think, talk a couple of weeks back about some exchange of texts between PurePay and the Piax. And
yeah, I think we've given updates at fans forums about what's been going on, and ultimately we're in a good place with that as I see it now. Obviously things can change, and things have changed. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but we're in a decent place now. And I think that if as the family said on Saturday, progress has been made, and I think some more progress has been made this week. So that's good.
And that needs to be sorted before you take the package to the EFL then. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it quite simply, you need to be able to say what you're going to do with that debt, and then the implication of that is how much money is needed to deal with it and when, which then flows into have you got the money and is it sufficient, etc. So you can't cover a lot of the questions that the EFL would want to look at until you've got a certain position about what's going to happen with that debt. And that is one of the reasons why it was always going to be the case that had to be dealt with in any transaction, because put bluntly, the EFL is not going to prove anything, in my view, that doesn't leave that debt really clear as to what happens going forward. That's not a problem, but that's always been the case, and that's why I've been talking about it for the last 2 years or so.
I mean, in terms of the package that goes to the EFL, does that need to include some kind of outline sort of business plan, or sort of explaining what they intend to do, or is it simply their fitness and ability to actually achieve?
Yeah, as I said, there's elements to it. So the element around the business plan comes under source and sufficiency of funds. Right. So there has to be a very detailed plan. It's not something you put on one side of a piece of paper. It's a very detailed plan that has to be backed up with detailed forecasts for the current season and the next season, covering what you're going to spend, where the money's going to come from, all kinds of things. So it's a proper, very thorough process, which I'm sure all fans would want. All fans would want that to take place for their club. And in some of the criticisms that's been levelled at the authorities around the previous takeovers is plans haven't been fulfilled and promises haven't been kept. So every time there is an instance of this, the requirements get toughened and the scrutiny increases. And I would say with the appointment of an independent regulator, that could take things to a new level, which should bring protection to clubs. It should filter out people who shouldn't be involved in the game, and it should give confidence and to fans, which is what we'd all want, which is one of the reasons why I'm a strong advocate of that. I think it also helps the independence of people like the EFL, who it's very difficult to judge on deals when you're on the inside. I think you need a greater degree of independence. I think that'll make the EFL's job easier, and it'll be good for the game. So that's why I personally am a strong advocate of it.
I mean, I'm guessing you've been involved in sort of starting to shape those plans up, and it must have brought you into sort of close, sort of detailed contact with the Patak team in terms of the family members that are involved in getting to grips with the club. I mean, what sense do you have of them as business people, as in terms of the level of detail they want to get into? When we met them briefly in London, they've clearly done their homework in terms of understanding the numbers behind the club. So I was quite sort of heartened by that. They weren't just talking sort of airy nonsense. They were clearly had
we've spent Suzanne Kidd and I have spent many hours on Zoom calls and when they've been in the club, explaining to them the dynamics of football finance from the bottom up. So they're accumulating their knowledge very quickly and in depth. and I get the sense that they want to know everything that's going to make this club better, which is really heartening. I've spoken to many people in the past who've made approaches and said, "This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it." And to be honest, you shake your head, and that's the experience that other clubs have had. So I'm heartened by the way they've approached it, and I think that should be good for the club if we can get this deal done.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Dawson, he said, remembering to name check people who asked questions, with apologies to Howard and Steve and Dave for the questions earlier. I mean, really, from that, I mean, if the takeover goes through, how confident are you, from what you've heard, that the Piax are definitely in it for the long term? They're not just.
Absolutely. I think I have a lot of confidence in that. They spent a lot of time in the early days explaining to us how they developed their businesses back in Jacksonville, the cultures that they tried to bring to those businesses and how they approached them. It was clear that they have long-term plans and visions in mind for things, and then they execute them. Again, which is all part of being successful, and they haven't reached the success that they've got over there by accident. And they seem good people with good ideas. They're prepared to listen. I think they're very engaging, which supporters have recognised. And I think that these are all good signs beyond some of the tick boxes and compliance that you have to go through.
We'll come on to some of the detail sort of things that might happen in some of the questions, but I mean, generally speaking, this is kind of my question really. Sort of what do you see as kind of the first 100 days agenda for the Piax? In terms of the balance of on the pitch, off the pitch, finance things as opposed to sorting out the toilets, sort of things. Where's the balance of activity lie in terms of priority?
I think that's probably a bit too premature to get into that now, to be honest. I think that will come. We've got to get the deal over the line, and I think I've said in the past, don't get too carried away about. We've got to learn the lessons of the past about getting carried away about lots of exciting plans before deals are done. We need to focus on getting this deal done. In general, I think they want to make an impact, as anybody does early doors. They want to show that there's change and positive change, and they want to do things all across the club. But we can talk about that if and when we get the deal done.
I mean, sort of just the big one, I suppose, is really on the playing side, and the January transfer window. I mean, do you think there's a chance of something being in place in order to influence what the club can do in the January transfer window?
Yeah, I mean, I think the families made it clear when they were talking to Kios that they would have preferred to have had this done in time for this transfer window. So it's important that we get the deal done. I don't want to set timescales, but we want to get it done as soon as possible. So that means that then the family can start to make an impact on the club, on and off the field, as quick as they can, and then have some time to prepare for January.
Yeah. Again, not getting ahead of ourselves, but it's a question that John McLaughlin and a couple of others asked. Was really around sort of Brunton Park. When we met them in London, they said how much they like Brunton Park. Presumably it's cute and old school and all that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see how they see Fratton Park, because that's a bit like a slightly tarted up Brunton Park these days. Have they talked to you about any ambitions for staying at Brunton Park or moving from Brunton Park? Where does
I think at the Kios meeting they made it clear that they were committed to Brunton Park, and that they wanted to improve it. I think once they've had experience of I think it's important about experience. I think once they've seen other clubs in action, I think they'll give them a much more rounded view of what English football is like, and where the successful clubs are and what they kind of do, and they could see that from themselves. Starting, well, I've obviously been to Bradford, so they've seen that, been to other places, and they'll see it again on Saturday at Portsmouth. And I think you can't beat experiencing it for yourself.
I mean, nobody's listening. I mean, what would your choice be if you had, if you had the money to either stay at Runton Park or start with a clean sheet of ground?
Oh, I mean, I think, I don't know. I don't deal in hypotheticals. I think what we have under our control is this stadium here, and I think everybody knows it's got some great aspects, but it's got some challenges. I think from a club development point of view, we are clearly close to being maxed out in terms of hospitality. Foxes and the 74, 75 Raw Lounge, they're nearly sold out every week. So they're at maximum capacity. That's really difficult to do anything radical with that in the West Stand. But we've got great opportunity in the other stand to on the east side, the Andrew Jenkins Pioneer stand. Great opportunities there to do things. So there's lots of things that we can do, and I think it's about prioritising and seeing where we can have the biggest impact. And I think from my point of view is that there has to be a balance between on the field and off the field, and I think they understand that already. I think they've seen the lessons of other people who've come in and learned very harshly how easy it is to see a lot of your cash go very quickly for no long-term benefit. So it's about balance, long-term, short-term, on the field, off the field.
Just before I move away directly from the takeover, Simon, is there anything that's come up in the chat that you think should be asked at this stage? Or
Dave was going to monitor the chat while I was looking at the waiting room. So over to Dave.
Yeah, no, there's nothing on the chat, John.
Okay, no, just to check. Okay, Nigel. I mean, again, just really in terms of sort of the finances of the club, and where we might be able to make a move in the transfer window. I know this is a question you've answered in other venues, but in terms of the sort of the transfer deals for Dean Henderson and James Trafford and Jared Branthwaite, in terms of the finances looking to the January transfer window, is there anything in those deals that's going to be helpful?
Not too much, to be honest. No, right. Not too much.
Yeah,
I've said again, going back a very long time, that I didn't think Dean Henderson would be transformational, and that's proved to be the case. James Trafford, obviously he came out of the EPPP compensation, which is not very good in my view, and that's helped a bit, but not too much. Probably the two deals will yield about a £1.1 million P&L profit this year, but in terms of cash, it's spread over a number of years, and the cash that we'll get from them this year is a six-figure sum, just about. So there's no huge amounts of cash coming in the short term from those deals, which will come as no surprise, because that's what I've kind of been telling fans for quite a while.
Yeah.
So it helps us give us some certainty of some cash flows in future years, but not this year.
Okay. Really, in terms of cash flow, then I suppose the other kind of bonus that you probably didn't expect at the start of the season was the increase in revenue in terms of home match ticket sales and the commercial revenue. Selling out the the club shop 3 times over, sort of thing. That must have made a difference to the amount of cash coming through the business.
Yeah, I mean, we anticipated and budgeted for a degree of uplift. I mean, last year was the best year trading wise, retail tickets, commercial on record. You can say 15 years, but we haven't got any papers going back that far. It's on record, and so that was brilliant. Maybe it reflects some pretty paltry years in the past, but nevertheless, it was the best year for on record. This year, as I say, we've forecast budgeted to make some more gains from being in a higher division. But it's fair to say, certainly the retail's outstripped that significantly. Commercial is doing better than we thought, and retail and tickets are doing better than we thought. But we budgeted for a lot of these gains, so there isn't much of a surprise. And to be honest, all of that money has been spent on commitments to improve the club in terms of more spending on and off the field, primarily on the field. So again, we'll be budgeting to make a greater than £1 million loss before the benefit of a £1.1 million transfer gain. So underlying that, the club loses and has lost around £750,000 minimum almost forever, and it's just been subsidised by cup runs, player sales, owner money, and then debt money until 2019, and then it's been self-funded, and that's pretty remarkable to operate since May 19 without any new money coming in, when you see the amounts that other clubs get from owners, etc. So we've done remarkably well, but we are where we are, and that doesn't leave much then spare to invest and develop and take the club to the next level. And that's where we hope that new ownership can help push us forward, which has been the vision actually since I came in. Just taking us 7 years to get here, almost come full circle. My first game as first league game as Carlisle CEO was Portsmouth away under Keith Curle in 16-17. I think we got a draw. We scored after about 10 minutes, I think. So this has been a long time coming, and the issues that were around in terms of the club development and progression are all long-standing. So there's no surprises in them, and hopefully we can start to then deal with some of those other ones going forward.
Yeah. Well, when you started your answer, you sort of described the nature of the operation of a football club that ends up you're about £1 million short at the end of the season. I mean, that's pretty much like every football club, isn't it? I mean, Carlisle is not uniquely disadvantaged. That's kind of how football works, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have about £300,000 depreciation charge every year that's non-cash, and we have been running around 100,000, now rising 150,000 of interest, which is just rolling up, which is non-cash. So say that's 400,000 a year. So we report a loss of £1 million, 400,000 of it's non-cash. So that means we've got to find £600,000 every year to keep our cash balances level. Some of that comes from transfer income, cup income, and then some of it comes from subsidy from one year to the next, where the level of our cash requirement each year is significantly lower compared to most other clubs at this level. And if you look at what other clubs' cash that's going in to keep them afloat, some of the numbers are absolutely eye-watering. But even in League Two, when the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the clubs coming up from the National League are coming up with even bigger cash requirements, and that's then creating inflation within the EFL and driving costs up more and more and increasing losses even more and more. So that the game is on a never-ending journey to financial oblivion, and it relies on a procession of new owners coming in to replace the last set of owners who've either decided to leave for whatever reason. Some run out of money, some get sick of losing the money, some never had any money. But the game, with the finances it is, it needs a turnover of new owners all the time who are prepared in the current regime to keep subsidising clubs. Yeah. It's not sustainable, and the game needs a financial reset, which we could spend another bit of time talking about.
Yeah, so you're involved in a group of some other clubs who are trying to sort of break that model, aren't you? I recall from previous conversations.
Yeah, we joined a group called Fair Game.
That's it.
Which was a group of like-minded clubs, people like Luton, Cambridge, Tranmere, Grimsby, quite a few clubs, league clubs, who were interested in promoting a change in approach to finances and the way clubs are run, for the good of clubs, and looking to address all the structural issues that are in the game. It's almost like a group just putting ideas forward and talking about things and raising the issues, and sharing best practice.
I guess that's something you've shared with the Piax. I mean, are they sort of, would they share this sort of campaigning on that side, do you think, to try and
we haven't this, that's one of the things we haven't discussed. From what they've said to me about their views of business and how football clubs should be run, and their vision of how a good club should operate and how they want Carlisle United to operate, there's very little space between them and the kind of things that Fair Game are advocating, which is great. It's all pretty sensible stuff, to be honest. There's differences around the edges between clubs as what they might disagree on some bits and pieces, but ultimately we want to see a game that's sustainable, where clubs can prosper and be sound and be great operators in their community. And that's really difficult in the current financial model, where financial pressures are so acute all the time.
Yeah, I mean, one of the sort of results of the the pressure you've been under as a business is that our budget, our playing budget's been low. It's low in League Two, it's low now in League One. I mean, John McLaughlin and others have asked, we've really got a low budget. We need to move that. That's surely got to be one of the Piax priorities, is to push us into a slightly better position in terms of being able to get the players we need to at least stay in the division.
Yeah, and that's right. We had a low budget in League Two, and we haven't got the greatest budget in League One, but we still got promoted. So money isn't everything. Again, there's lots of issues about value for money, what you spend it on, how much of what you spend ends up on the pitch, and how much ends in the stand, or sat at home excluded from the team. So it's not as simple as to how much you spend. And clearly we proved that last year, and many other clubs prove it all the time. Yes, if you've got more money and you spend it wisely, you've got a greater chance than people who haven't got as much of you, even if they spend it wisely. So it's not just about the money, it's what you do with it.
Do you think the Piax have got access to a flow of American talent then from college soccer?
I don't know. I think we haven't discussed that. I don't discuss that.
Johann Smith is the one I remember from, I think, that route, but that was a long time ago. Moving on, I can see we're sort of 3/4 an hour in. I wanted to talk about tickets and crowds, because in a way that's been one of the successes of this season, has been, you know, crowds and ticket sales, and really sort of trying to understand the sort of relationship really between what we do for visiting supporters at Brunton Park and how that affects the away fans, you know, London branch members attending away games. Kevin Wooldridge, for example, asked that, you know, given we've got amazing away support and we took 4,000 to Bolton, why did we only give Derby, who probably could have brought more than 1,500, why did we only give them 1,500 tickets? You know, we lost money, and it means that Derby might not be as favourably disposed to us if we turn up and say we'd like 4,000 tickets at Derby, please.
Yeah, I think we look at allocations case by case. I think for that particular game, we made a commercial decision that we felt it was in the interests of the club and the team not to have 4,500 Derby fans and 8,000 or 9,000 Carlisle fans here. Fans help you win. So the more of them are Carlisle fans at our games and the less away fans, the better, to be honest. And yes, we might have lost some cash, but we knew that was the case, and we took a broader view that we wanted to have our fans in the waterworks and give our fans the best opportunity to cheer the team on.
I think Simo's talked about he wants both ends with Carlisle fans, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing against Derby. If we'd have offered them 8,000, they probably could have taken it. So it's not like they've ultimately lost out, because they still had near enough 1,800 fans or 1,600 fans or so. So, but it was a decision that we took for those reasons, really.
Yeah. Just to make sure I understand it correctly, and you know, I think these rules sometimes change. I mean, as it stands financially, home club keeps all the money. So when we go to Portsmouth and sell 700 tickets, Portsmouth get all the money. Carlisle don't get anything out of that, do they?
We get a 5% commission on what we sell through our box office to cover our costs. But essentially, that's correct. Home club keeps their home gate. Right.
But in terms of the actual sort of the quality of the accommodation given, is there any kind of formula or sort of rule that, you know, what you do to the fans visiting Brunton Park impinges on what we get offered as away fans?
Well, there's a rule that you should offer the away team 10% of your capacity, subject to security. So I'll make that available. So if you've got 30,000 capacity ground, you might look for something around a minimum of 3,000, and that's the EFL regulations on that. So in our particular case, our capacity is currently the 17,000. So 1,700 is the 10%, subject to security reasons. So that's how we tend to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously clubs can give more, as we saw at Bolton. We got much more than 10% of their capacity, because the nature of their stand meant you could have the whole of one end. Plus, I think there was 22,000 there. So there's still 17,500 of their fans, 17,000. So from a fan atmosphere point of view, it's a win-win if you can still keep that kind of balance, that you can dominate the atmosphere. Although they didn't on that occasion. We had plenty to shout about, so it was fantastic. So yeah.
I mean, so Mike Kilner was positing various combinations of sort of, you know, reordering things within the East Stand and the Waterworks end. I mean, as far as you're concerned, the current location for the away fans is probably optimal in terms of access and facility, and
I think that we have security plans in place, and the current plan is that we think that the best place for the away fans is at the end of that stand, because that's where there's a segregation gate within the stand. So that works. It's designed that way. The nature of accessing the petrol end through the turnstiles is not conducive to splitting that stand. Plus, again, security wise, it doesn't really work having two sets of fans in around the back car park near the Neil Centre altogether. So again, the way the Neil Centre sits and the nature of the site all suits having the away fans in that corner at that end.
I said some of the questions around here were sort of Brunton Parky questions, and perhaps the detail lies for another meeting. But just generally, Howard Atkinson, among others, asked just in terms of the FA investigations. I guess we have to say now, in terms of some behaviour at Brunton Park, where do we stand? And again, is that likely to be a concern to us as away fans? You know, are we going to get sanctioned because of the behaviour at Brunton Park?
Well, there's all kinds of sanctions open to the FA. In where we are at the moment is that we got an extension in relation to the charge for the pitch invasion versus Bradford in the playoff semi-final. So we've got an extension, and that our submission will be going in either today or either tomorrow or Monday on that charge. It's very strict liability. If fans go on the pitch, you've breached the rules. So we'll be pleading guilty and making mitigations. What that will lead to, I honestly don't know. I think Port Vale will find £30,000 for their pitch invasion in the playoffs the season before. So these are serious. Again, I've talked to fans endlessly about this. These are serious sanctions for these events, these incidents. And as I said, on Monday, we had the FA at our game on Saturday, looking at the steps that we'd taken to deal with the charge when we were fined £7,500 very recently. And they were at that game looking at, and so I'm showing them around, saying, look at all this good work that we're doing here, look at all this messaging, etc., etc. And then we have other incidents to deal with. Yeah,
I say, being parochial about it, you're not aware of any occasion when away fan allocations have been restricted because of behaviour at the home stadium that have not been linked in the past.
I think it's kind of a risk-based approach that the authorities adopt. So if a club is having trouble at away games, then the focus will be on steps and sanctions to deal with the issue at away games. We've had occasional issues away, but they've been relatively rare, and our fans on the whole are very, very well behaved. You can see that from all the data that we have around arrests and banning orders and that kind of stuff. But it only takes one fan to ruin it for everybody. And this is the nature of it, which makes it very difficult for the club to deal with. And all we can do is keep banging on and talking about the message.
Yeah, well, so I think from a London branch point of view, I think we just say here to that. anything we can do to help, really.
Yeah.
But, one thing I wanted to talk about was the facilities for disabled supporters at Brunton Park. As you're probably aware, the London branches over the last few seasons kind of offered financial, support to initiatives around disabled supporters. Again, this is possibly stuff for the future when the Piax are in place. But I mean, are there any initiatives in the shorter term around just improving what are fairly poor facilities for disabled supporters at Brunton Park?
I think. Well, the disabled facilities are poor. There's no doubt about it. Doing anything to make a significant improvement is really difficult. The support that we've had from the London branch in helping us increase capacity by having further areas in the bottom corner on the southeast corner, Pioneer, Warwick Road end, and then at the petrol end near the Away Fans have been welcome. But dealing with this has been very much, I've talked about it before, in terms of CapEx and improvements, we have safety issues, essentials, and then everything else. And generally when we've dealt with safety issue spending and essential repairs and maintenance spending, there's very little else left. And this goes back to the point I mentioned before about needing £750,000 of cash every year to balance and keep the bank account level. I think I would hope that we can make improvements in that area, and it certainly be a priority that I will be talking about as soon as I can. And I think that can fit in nicely around the Warwick Road end and all the issues that we have about concessions, toilets, access in that south-east corner under the redundant floodlight. And I think that's an opportunity for us to look at, funding permitted.
As I say, there are some fairly detailed questions coming from folk around sort of ticketing at Brunton Park. I think the main two that I was going to flag, I think the ones Dave Brown had flagged, was one thing, sort of the ticket scanning process at Brunton Park. Is there anything that could be done to speed that up? It just seems, a slow process getting.
Where anything in particular? Is it anywhere or just generally?
I think it was just generally. Is there any technology that you're about to invest in or unleash that's going to make?
Well, we changed the ticket software system, which links into access controls at the end of last season. So we've got a whole new system. We're constantly investing in Wi-Fi to improve the scanning process. In terms of we look at this, it's one of the biggest issues that we have on a match day. Every match is the speed at which we get people in, and whether everybody gets in on for kickoff. We're always looking at it, and it is on the top of our agenda to try and make sure that the scan is as effective as possible. There are I could talk about constraints around this, but we are where we are with it. For us,
I think that's fine. Thanks, Nigel. Just to move, just final one on that sort of stuff. I mean, in terms of season tickets, apparently this season you've not been selling season tickets sort of once the season's been underway, and sort of not doing the half-season tickets for Christmas. Mm-hmm. Is that true? Sort of?
Yes, we made that clear before the season started. Yeah. During the season selling process, to encourage people who wanted to commit for the season to back us for the season, and that's the way we are now.
Okay. Moving on, in terms of the standards of refereeing, Steve McLean was really asking whether the club's had any further communication around sort of the complaints that have been made around the refereeing of some of the games sort of earlier in the season.
Yeah, well, after every game, Paul submits marks for the referees. I think he speaks to the referees people quite regularly. I've got no information on beyond what he says in the press conferences about what he's hearing back.
Right. I mean, as somebody who watches football yourself, do you think the refereeing's been, on balance, better or worse this season, or is it new rules that have made the referees make some strange decisions? What's your take on it?
I don't get too. This might sound a bit strange. I don't get too bogged down in referees. They are totally uncontrollable and sadly, you just have to take the rough with the smooth, and makes for some very bad journeys home sometimes. And I can be a bee with someone with a sore head. But I don't kind of get bogged down in it. What would I say? I think there's lack of consistency. Referees are always going to get loads of decisions wrong. I'm not too bothered whether they get a throw-in wrong on the halfway line or a free kick wrong on the halfway line, etc., etc. As long as it kind of balances itself out. To me, it's the key match decisions that are absolutely crucial. Is that a penalty? Yes or no? And getting more of those right. And having spoken to referees and speak to the assessor every match, generally about how they see it. Sometimes I don't know. I can't see why they haven't given the decisions that they give. A new one for me this season's been called. I think they call it, or in my mind, it's threshold, something around that. So you foul somebody outside the box, and they'll give a free kick, and then they do the same thing in the box, and they don't give a penalty, because to give a penalty, it's a higher threshold all of a sudden. So immediately they're saying, yes, we will referee inconsistently the same decision, and that's going to get fans going mad. It's going to get managers going mad, and it's going to get everybody losing faith in the process. So I know it's really difficult, because what tends to happen is fans and the game, generally administrators, demand and want tougher decisions, unless it happens to you, and then they don't like it. So what we were told in the summer, Howard Webb came to the EFL conference and he said, we're going to crack down on time wasting, especially at the end of games, people feigning injury. And we got shown that this is the whole of the EFL, all the clubs, big video presentation. We're going to crack down on it. We're gonna look at time wasting. We're going to add the time around celebrations, so the clock will stop when the ball hits the net, and it won't start again until the kickoff kicks off. That may take 3 minutes. We're not going to even stop the fan. We're not going to stop the celebrations. It's part of the game. It's going to be really exciting. Everybody wants to cheer. So, yeah, let players celebrate. Let fans celebrate. Brilliant. Takes 3 minutes. Add 3 minutes on. So they start doing that. We end up with 10 minutes injuries to 10 minutes added time. And then teams start letting goals in added time. And everybody says, oh, we don't like that. We don't like that. Let's go back to having time wasting and have 90 plus 3. So all of a sudden, we don't get the 10 minutes anymore. We only get, we're back to the 3 minutes each half. So it can be a bit, when you see all that, you can end up being a bit cynical on the inside about some of these initiatives. I just want to get as many key decisions right consistently.
Yeah, I think it is the consistency thing, isn't it? Okay, yeah. My last section is around kind of supporter engagement, which is really what this is all about. I just want to check with Dave. There's anything in the chat that's worthy of?
No, no questions on chat yet, John.
Good. Well, good.
Everybody's asleep.
Right. Okay, so I wanted to finish on supporter engagement. One thing that actually is it the official pronunciation? Then is Piatak, is it? Or
I'm not too sure.
right. Okay.
I thought I had it cracked, and then somebody told me I was getting it wrong all the time. So I'll just don't rely on how I say it.
Okay. Yeah, it had me worried there for a bit. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think it was Tom Senior said was, let's own the North, in terms of
I've just got a message in the group from Andy who told me I'm from Andy Hall, who told me I was saying it wrong. It's Piax.
Attic.
Piax.
Attic. Right, so we were both wrong then. Right. Okay, yeah. One thing Mr. Piatic said then was let's own the north in terms of being the dominant club in. I guess he meant the northwest. I guess Newcastle would have probably an opinion on the east side. And Graham Harker, among others, asked sort of what are your thoughts on extending the fan base by really sort of embracing the rest of, I mean, he called it the county. Well, I think the county's split up again now, but sort of the whole of the old Cumbria and then sort of some of the border areas where we've always drawn fans from. But I think to do out there.
Yeah, I think as the family said, it's we're in a pretty unique position given our geography.
That's what Michael Knight said. That was Michael Knight.
Yeah. Well, it was right, and it hasn't changed. We haven't moved, and nobody else has moved either. So it was right, and I think there's a great opportunity to attract more fans. We've seen that we've gained a huge number of young fans in the last 18 months, 2 seasons.
We talked about fan behaviour issues, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, but let's that's the tiny minority. This is the point. It's easy to dismiss that as or group everybody in that, and I refuse to do it. The growth's been fantastic, and I think hopefully we can continue to encourage it, and that's the sort of things that we've been doing with the CUSG groups. And I think that will continue, and certainly we want to see more young people, more boys and girls coming to our games. It's fantastic. There's some great life experiences and memories generated forever. So I'm sure anybody who was at Bolton will remember that forever. You remember those games, so it's brilliant. So I think yes, it's a great opportunity. How we go about doing that, I think that's the sort of thing we're going to sit down and speak about once they're in place. We've seen Kendall and Philip Walker get a Kendall branch going as a relatively quickly to 30 or 40 people. So these things can be done. A lot of it can't be done by the club on its own. I think one of the things that is going to become more important is everybody working together to play a part and see if we can see how we can do things. But I think it'd be great, and I think the family will have a different approach to fan engagement, and how we've seen it already in the fact that they're out and about in how they operate. So I think that'll help things potentially.
I mean, you take postcodes for ticket sales. Can you do any analysis there to see where the fan base is waxing or waning, really? So
yeah, we have all that data, and I look at it to see where our fans are based on postcodes. And it is interesting. We have people come from quite a way away to our games. But we don't have so many coming from over the borders we might think. So there is opportunity northwards as well. So there's lots of things we can do.
I mean, related to that, Peter Gilmore had mentioned sort of. His question was when will the club have a Q&A session in West Cumbria? I guess he means like a fans forum event.
No, I think one of the things I'm keen to get going is a road show, and I think that depends on buy-in from the family to do that. To be honest, I can do them any time of the week, but I'm not going to be a great attraction, even though I would say so myself. But so you need to have an attraction, and it's very difficult with managers to do it because they've got, especially at this time of year, it's Saturday, Tuesday. So it's not as easy as it might think, but I think that is something that we're already thinking about. Yeah, just going on to that as well. We did the fan survey last month, and we were hoping that that's going to be the start of understanding the fan base more. So just keep an eye out for some more of those things, and the more people give us information, it helps us then make more informed decisions about where to allocate the resources and what to do. So please participate and just keep your eye out for some more of those, which will help us inform what we do.
I mean, related to kind of crowd and catchment, and sort of what sort of club we are. Again, when we met the Piax in London, we were trying to think of clubs that aspirational clubs for Carlisle. Who would we like to who do we think we could be in the future? And we kind of agreed with Tom that we probably weren't. The Premier League probably was a step too far in the foreseeable conceivable future. But there's probably sort of championship clubs we could look at. And we talked about Norwich's and clubs like that, which have a geographical area sort of fairly to themselves. Do you have a sort of vision of what sort of club Carlisle could be like in terms of?
Yeah, I think I like uniqueness. I think we have to take what is good about this city and this area, this county, and shout and scream about it and make everybody understand that this place is different and it's special. So I'm not about sort of saying, look what they're doing, let's try to copy it. I think there's enough going for Carlisle to have a really, really strong identity across football. And I think that's what Tom was talking about when he said on the North. And so that's the first thing. I think in terms of clubs that do a lot right, I think lots of clubs do lots of things right in different areas, and it's difficult to kind of say, okay, well, we'll just aspire to be a bit like Norwich or whatever. Norwich have 25 to 30,000 fans every week, and I've had so for decades. They might have been up and down a bit, but that's how they are. They've got uniqueness that makes them special. I think for us, I kind of look at it and say, right, why can't we just be a championship club? There's not many teams. When we played Bolton, we had the biggest away crowd in the whole of the EFL. So we don't need to aspire to be anybody else. Let's just be what we are and just take it to the next level. I think there's clubs that do good things with youth development. There's clubs that do great things with engagement. So I think it's a matter of picking and choosing the bits of best practice that certain clubs do. So you might have some clubs who are great at fan engagement, but they're poor at other things. There might be fans who are have a great stadium, but they're terrible at fan engagement. So there's all kinds of things that you just got to pick and choose what's best, I think.
That feels like quite a good place to stop from my point of view. David, is there anything else coming through from? We could risk trying to throw this open to questions from the floor. I don't know if Simon and Dave feel up to that. It's
yeah, well, certainly one thing that did come up is Andy Halls mentioned that our website is predominantly male 18 to 55. Just to give an indication of what's what our makeup is of fans. I would be very happy if people wanted to put some questions on chat. Any questions, anybody?
Anybody want to risk unmuting and saying it out loud? Is that
Even better?
Can we have a step change increase in playing budget and still meet SCMP rules? Is owner cost injection turnover classed as turnover? The current rules have two elements to them. The first is your normal on what you can spend. The first is your normal business activity, and you can spend a percentage of the turnover that you get from tickets, retail, commercial, and all these kinds of things. And that depends on which division you're in. And then separately, the amount that you get from Football Fortune, which is player sales and cup runs, you can spend every penny of that. And then on top of that, if your owner injects equity, you can spend 100% of that. So that means that clubs with low levels of turnover can have huge levels of spending on players if their owners inject equity to subsidise them. So that means you can have a horrific profit and loss account showing colossal losses. You can have huge amounts of cash equity going in, and you can pass all the SCMP rules. So that's how it is at the moment. So new equity allows you to spend more. So that is a possibility. New rules are being considered by the EFL to replace SCMP, squad cost management protocols, and these are going to be called squad cost ratio rules, SCRR. And the league and the clubs are currently debating, along with the Premier League, what these rules could look like, and they may change the treatment of Football Fortune spending and equity, and that will change what clubs can spend. But they're up for debate at the moment, and they're quite. It's a hot topic because if you've got a very low turnover because you're a small club with low gates, but you've got a super rich owner who's prepared to subsidise you, you can spend huge amounts of cash and lose lots of money. But under the rules, you consider that's okay. But that spending, how sustainable is it? And this is the model that you end up with. Why Bury got into difficulties? Bury complied with all the rules. It complied with the rules, but the owner ran out of money for the commitments that he'd made. So, yes, under the current rules, we could make a step change if that was what was felt needed to happen. But those rules may be getting changed in future. Watch this space. So that was that one. Paul. So we got Paul. I travel from Lee. Do you have a break-even attendance? Well, no is the answer. But you can work it out yourselves. Basically, our yield, that's the amount of cash that we get per ticket, excluding VAT, is around now. It's about £14, and we lose £1 million. So if you divide 1 million by 14, that's the amount of extra people that we would need to get in, and then divide it by 23 for the amount per home game. And you can work out how many extra fans that we would need to break even. That's before any extra costs of stewarding. I'm sure someone can work out £1 million divided by 14 times 23. Put it on the chat. So that's that one. Let's see if I can get some more of these. That's that. Howard, when are fans likely to learn about the impact of Sky deal that's on ticket time, kickoff times? So a part of the deal that starts from June 24, there's going to be lots more live EFL games, 4 cameras. It will replace iFollow, so iFollow will go away, and if you want to watch games in the UK, then you'll need to subscribe to Sky. Part of the commitment is that they're going to release details of fixtures much earlier, and do them in blocks right at the start of the season, and then I think it's before FA Cup the FA Cup second round. I think it's around November time, to try and give as much notice as possible to fans. The details we're yet to find out, but that'll be coming soon. As soon as we know, we'll confirm that. What else we got here? That's that one. So Richard Mull, hi Richard. Piax mentioned in their first public statement that the pure pay debt had to be resolved for the transaction to go through. What does that resolve mean? Is it fully paid, plan, or something else? He did say that, and he's basically reiterated what I've been saying for all these years. And it could be any of those. It could mean that the debt goes away. It could be that there's a plan, or the debt's paid off at whatever level. It could mean that it stays and it's paid off over a period of time, or there's something else done with it. This is what we've been trying to agree for 2 years or so, and I think we're getting close to a resolution on that. However it's resolved, and as Tom said, it would be, and I believe that, the key bit is it's dealt with so that on day one everybody knows what is going to happen with it. As everybody knows, as we sit here now, the debt is on demand. So in theory, we could get a phone call tomorrow saying pay us £2.6 million back. So that's not very good for anybody coming in. They don't want that, so they need certainty as to what is going to happen going forward, and that's what discussions have been about. I think whatever happens, I think it'll be very simple, and I think I've seen comments from fans about retaining shares and all this kind of stuff. I think it'll have to be far simpler than that to work for everybody. Training facilities. Fleetwood's training facilities reported as costing 8 million. Would we have to spend much more, or maybe even more, to get some of our own? Yeah, I think I can speak from my own experience. When I was at Huddersfield had no real training facilities, and one of the things that I'm most proudest of that I did there was bring some training facilities around and build something that ultimately became championship standard, and that they've developed further since then. I think facilities can cost whatever you want them to cost. I think we have to take a phased approach. We need to get something that works and that can be implemented relatively quickly, but can then grow and deal with something long term. I'm very much an advocate of a campus type approach, where academy and first team can all be together on one site. I think it's good for clubs and development of players, and that's what to me the best blueprint is. Obviously, that's going to take a while, but we need to start looking at that straight away, and we already had some discussions on what that might look like. But clearly, it's a significant investment over a long period. Next is the 50th anniversary of our Division 1 season. Anything planned? That's very much watch this space. I don't want to give anything away. But yes, we understand that, and we want to mark that event, and we will be doing. We've got some plans, but I don't want to talk about those just now.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the 50th anniversary of the London branch, of course. So,
oh, very good, very good.
Well, perhaps we could do something together, eh? So.
Hey, absolutely, absolutely. Next one, EFL digital website. Yeah, that's from Andy Hall. Has put this on.
That's for info, really, isn't it? Rather than that.
Yeah. We have a shared platform with many other EFL clubs, and there's a discussion taking place as to what happens with that in the future. Again, the timing for that might be good if we can do something for us to look at something ourselves, and there might be a business case for that. Generally, on things like those kind of issues, because we've lacked investment capital, we've taken approaches that have been simple to execute, and that we didn't need any capital to deal with, because obviously if you have your own website and back office, etc., there's a significant investment in IT and people to run it, whereas currently we get that all essentially for free from the EFL. What's the next one? Is it the case from Martin again? Is it still the case that if you make Championship, you only have to make your 3 years to make your ground all seater? If we got there, would we want safe standing? Yeah, there are restrictions still about all seater stadia in the Championship, but obviously safe standing is now allowed. I think it'd be nice problem to have, not one I've been thinking too much about. I love terracing. I think it's fantastic. You'll need to see how it works at Brunton Park, and I think it's one of the things that makes us special. There are few places in English football where fans can experience the match day standing on the terrace as they can here, and I think that's the sort of thing that we need to celebrate, in my view.
I think that's the final one on the chat there, Nigel, and that takes us to pretty much 8:30, which was my kind of penciled in cut-off time. Given we've been running solid for an hour and a half, I'd like to thank you for your full answers to all of the questions, your patience with some of the questions. Thanks for taking the time out of what must be an immensely busy schedule. I hope you have a better journey down from Carlisle to Portsmouth than my wife had from Manchester this afternoon. But are you going to be at Portsmouth, by the way, Nigel?
Yeah. I'll be going to Portsmouth. As I said, the last time I was there was for Keith's Curls game, and I think I am right in thinking that we got a draw.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think I was there. I think I remember that one. Yeah.
I'm not sure. We might have even had a man.
Ian Davidson's on the call. He must know. So.
Yeah, I think we got a draw. I think Dev might have scored.
It was David.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's
Right.
it. Lamb scored. Dev passed it to Dev passed the ball to Reggie, and he scored, and then Dev got sent off, I think. Yeah. But that was one of those. Another great game. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Good. Well, we'll give you a wave from when you're in the director's box, no doubt. So.
Yeah, well, I might. I understand. Is there a pub or something where the fans are going?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say you're very welcome to join us, Nigel, at the Artillery Arms in Hester. I'll send you I'll email you the details.
Yeah.
It looks like we're hoping that Tom and Patty are going to be coming along as well for about 12:30.
Yeah, I think they're planning to. They've told me that they're going to the pub beforehand. So I presume it's the home pub.
Oh, you'd better be there then, hadn't you? So.
Oh no, I don't want to be. I don't want to be following them around.
I'll send you that.
Leave them. Don't need me chaperoning.
I'll send you email you the address anyway.
Yeah.
And for everybody else, Artillery Arms, Hester Road, South Sea, which is about 10 minutes walk from the ground.
Yeah. Do you want to do the commercial for the branch, Dave, or shall I do the commercial for the branch?
I think over to you, John.
Okay, right. Well, I'll just finish by reminding everyone that London branch has got members all over the world and throughout the UK. And I think the UK is in the world, so I guess that statement stands. I mean, the London branch is always been, I think, really an exiles branch rather than simply a sort of southeastern London branch. And I think the folk on this call reflect that. So, you know, we welcome members from wherever. If you're interested in joining, either leave your email address in the chat tab. Plenty of you seem to have worked out how to use the chat, so leave your email address there, and our membership team will get back to you. Or you can just visit the website, which is www.carlisle-londonbranch.org, and the membership joining details are on there. I think it's only 20 quid for an adult member, isn't it, these days? Yes, these days.
Yeah, and half price for the first season.
Right.
So £10 for an adult, £5 for under 25, and 6 copies of Hit the Bar a year, weekly bulletins, ticket priority, 10% discount at the club shop, meeting pubs, discounted travel from London, lots of great more. And events like this tonight.
Okay, well, okay, I'll close on that note. Let's look forward to 3 points and some goals on Saturday, and well, see a lot of you in the pub on Saturday, including you, Nigel. Thanks again for your time, much appreciated. We should do this again when the takeover is complete, and we can celebrate.
No, I'm delighted. I really enjoy these. I'll do them as often as you guys want to do them. I really enjoy them, and I just wanted to end by saying thanks for all your support. I see many of you at the railway stations and at away games as we mull over results, good and bad. So sometimes you see me in a good light, and other times I'm quite sore. But it's great to see you all, and I look forward to seeing some of you in Portsmouth. Up the Blues.
Right. Thank you and good night. Good night all.